everyone. All right, so we are joined by the one-two punch father-son duo of the Lumpia deep fried universe, Mr. Lawrence and Diego Iriarte. How are you, gentlemen?
Hey,
Good.
good,
Hello.
good.
Uh, thank you for joining me in this early morning hour. The people listening will not know it's an early morning hour, but I always like to get the context. So thanks for getting up and joining me. I appreciate it. Um, Lawrence, I want to start off with you first, just because you're the first one I met, and also we'll start off with the proud papa to get us going here. Uh, the whole thing about the Lumpia universe, I think it comes a lot from a big geek nerd love of pop culture. And
Yeah.
how did you or do you remember falling in love with comics, movies, all that stuff?
Oh, I've been a comic book person like ever since I was like all I've known. Comic books have been a major part of my life. I actually originally wanted to be, or my goal was to be a comic book artist, and I actually became one. I became a comic book artist very young, and I was very fortunate to have met mentors in the industry and who got me in. And I actually was a ghost artist for working on some major books, which I can't really say who they are and what they are, but I learned from some major names that showed me the ropes and introduced me to the world of comic books. Um, and I was just getting out of high school actually when I started.
So
Um,
where did you get your training, or were you self taught, or?
I was self-taught but sought formal training. Let's put it that way. I think every kid at one point of my generation picked up the book How to Draw Comic Books the Marvel Way, and I learned how to mimic a lot of the styles that really guided me, and I developed a knack to basically clone my favorite artists and a lot of the artists at the time, because I learned drawing from comic books actually, doing imitating the styles and imitating my favorites. And then when I came to the United States in my teen years, um, I was introduced to the comic book shops, and through those shops I was able to find my first comic book conventions, which I met my heroes from the industry. Some of them, which are from the tribe, Tony DeZunga, Alex Nino, um, Ernie Chan, one of the first group of Filipino comic book artists who were very influential during the Marvel days, and as well as DC Comics. I have a really good friend, Brent Anderson, who's done Astro City, who I met at a very young age, who is a major influence and who actually introduced me to even more comic book artists over the years. But through Brent and through the tribe, I got a lot of my exposure and the opportunity to meet other names and really big names over the years, and they mentored me. But they all pointed me out to going to art school and taking classes. Everybody influenced or told me that you should take classes. Study the masters. Don't classical artwork rather than just comic books alone. And so I took that to heart. And whenever I was in high school, I was taking a lot of art classes, and then during the summers, I actually went to the community college and actually took. I registered myself and took nude figure drawing, former drawing classes, all the way up to when I graduated. I actually went to the Academy of Art University in San Francisco.
And do
So,
you think, of course, if there's any aspiring artists listening, do you think this was all definitely worth it and everybody was right and you're so glad you did it?
oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Um, there. I think the discipline was necessary, not knowing, if you didn't know or were exposed to the type of discipline that's required of an artist, the industry would probably take you by surprise about how deadlines are, but how you're constantly drawing, redrawing, and re-editing and redrawing, and drawing, sketching all the entire time, which just developed my skill. And it really helped me. I mean, I was opened up to a whole new world about classical shading and lighting and dynamic figure work. I really attribute to that. So if you have the discipline on your own, some folks do, so I mean, I'm not saying that you cannot do it without making it, without taking classes or going to school, but school definitely, for myself, um, really made a major difference. And I highly recommend any aspiring person take the lessons, take the lessons. And
Well, then I think that's a perfect way to send it over to your son here. Diego, did you have this same path, or like did you follow his example, or were you just like, I'm just gonna do what I want?
It's trippy because my path is almost kind of reverse of my father's, because I really wanted to get into film when I was younger, and I I was always around him, seeing like the on-set environment. I was always introduced into the comic book world very early on as a kid, so I got to meet all the professionals my dad was talking about at a young age. And I've always had a love for comic books, and I definitely wanted to do it. But when I was younger, I really liked movies. And I just think at a certain point when I started working professionally, I found my love to be more towards drawing. Um, Especially when I got more involved on working on like Lumpia, uh, and I was kind of really conflicted because I love both of these things, and I really didn't know how I could have like all this knowledge of film and all this knowledge of comic books, like what to do with it. And when I was 16, I met one of my mentors, Dan Brereton. Um, he told me, he said like, "Hey, why not go into animation?" And for me, I never thought like that was an option, because I didn't realize. And I was like, oh yeah, because it's moving drawings, so it's the merging of both movies and comic books, or art. So um he taught at the same school my dad went to, the Academy of Art, and I took the pre-college program just like my dad. And I took figure drawing, all the classical drawing classes. I didn't take any comic book or any illustration classes at that point, and I really fell in love with the fine art, the classical training. And by the time I got out, I knew like, okay, I want to go here. This is what I want to do, because for the first time in my life, I really felt like, one, as a young person, I met people that had the same mind and space as myself. Um, Two, seeing just professors who this is what they do. This is their normal life. But when you're in high school, you like, especially nowadays at the schools that I was going to, they really weren't like advocating art. And I didn't have a single art class where you actually draw with charcoal or anything, or drawing from life. And for me, it was game changing. And it really opened my eyes into thinking that, one, I could really do this. Two, it's a true love that propelled me to go, I definitely want to do comic books even more. And through Lumpia, and even to this day, of like with school, as I'm going to the same college now, I'm it's 3 years later, and here I am at that school that I dreamed of going to. And it's changed me to the point where like I'm even learning like new techniques on my own. I've taught myself how to paint. like, and I have all these industry professionals who have taught me, like Gary Amaro, Chris Morenin. These are industry comic book artists that like help guide me to this day. And it, in all honesty, for my perspective, I admire people who are self-taught to a very high degree. And up until I was 15 years old, I was the kid in the library who's teaching myself, from Joe Kubert's books to uh, Will Eisner. And these are people that I have a huge respect for. And unfortunately, they're gone, and I can't meet these people. So it's my only way of seeing the old craft. And when I go into art school, these are people who are from my father's generation or even older, who are showing me those techniques along with the digital aspect. So I get this unique kind of fusion into seeing the media that of even like film and stuff like that through even animation classes. Like, it fuels me to this day to have this kind of perfect blend, and I'm very thankful for it. With my father's influence, my dad has never been like, you better do art or you need to do this. He's never he's not that. My
You
dad
will
was
do what I do.
yeah, my dad never ever wanted me to do exactly what he's done. My dad has always been like, he's supported my choices. He always like, he always loved seeing me draw when I was a kid, but he was never like, you know what, son, you just better stop doing those games. He was never, he wasn't like that. My dad, like, he would see me play games, but he would tell me, like, he says, I just wish I could see you draw more. And then I would go, oh man, like, I valued that. And he said, like, for a person your age, like, it's rare to see someone spend so much time to their passion. And that's what fueled me more. Like, when I was going to the library, even when I was in high school, I would, instead of going home, I would just go to the library and still study. Like, I would do my homework and I would draw for hours. And I wouldn't play games on my phone really. And if I would, like, maybe be for an hour, and then 2 hours later just be drawing still.
The trippy thing is, Derek, is that
Mm.
Diego was doing things that, without having told him or sharing, is that he was doing what I did because we didn't have computers, when of my time, of my generation, the home computer, and we had the Commodore 64, but the accessibility of what was available out there from television and computers was not there. So Diego unknowingly was doing what I did by going to the library and checking, ironically, just, or trippy wise, is that he was actually checking out the same books from Will Eisner, Joe Kubert, the same books that I at one point had looked through, and same artists, with the exception of How to Draw Comic Books the Marvel Way, which is,
Yeah.
the funny, which was the standard for me. But him being in the library, I kid you not, I would pick him up after working on a set or on a gig, and pick up my son, who went directly to the library. And he was doing exactly what I did when I was in high school, which is, after school I would rush to the library, look for all those books, and then I would be drawing, because those things weren't accessible. The things that people go on YouTube, and finding out how someone did anything was not accessible. But Diego was doing it without me even telling him this is what I did. He was like, out of his own pure passion and in his own path, which was tripping me out.
That's what I was
You
gonna
know,
say. How did this make you feel? You're just like, okay, I'm not doing this. He's doing it on his own.
it's like how much do you share? Because there's always that thing for me, which I learned, is that parents could either tip that scale. They could easily, like, if they get too involved, it turns off the kid, it's like, oh, you should do sports and blah blah blah, and in order to do sports you got to do this and throw the ball this way, and there's
You're
that thing.
Filipino, get into medicine.
Yeah, he's like, get it, you need to be a doctor, you need to he's like, there's that whole thing of like, making sure that he really had the choice, but without, it's hard because you don't want to say anything, because really it's the either saying too much or not saying enough that could really tip the scale. And I chose to just like, I'll let him ask. I'm gonna just draw over here and not tell him like, you should draw this. I'm just gonna do my storyboards, or whenever I was working on a script or breaking down a character design, I'll do it over here, and I'll give him some paper if he wants. Because that's what he wound up doing. He's like, hey Dad, can I borrow that? It's like, sure. And hey Dad, can I borrow this? Like, sure. But I never, but it was that really fine line of like, how involved do I get? Because this, it's the path of an artist is, not a very easy one.
One thing I want to touch on really quick though, it seems even for both of you, the importance, and it's always something that gets brought up a lot with a lot of people's stories, the importance of teachers and mentors, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I would, for me, I teachers on one aspect, especially when I went into college, like pre-college, for the first time in my life, I really I never met anybody who was very similar to my dad, and a lot of these professionals and professors, uh, they impacted me in a way where they, because they aren't my dad, they would just be brutally honest, and like, and I just remember my first day in art school. My professor Adam, he told me, it's like, looks a lot like a comic book artist. Like he saw like he's like, it's like Joe Kubert, and I was like, yeah, how'd you know? So he could tell like I studied from comic books and how much it was an influence. And he never was he never like discouraged me and going like, don't do comic books. My professor wanted to do comic books also, and he more or less encouraged me to do it. And it was never like the pushback of what I would get more in high school. Because in high school, they're going, "You want to be an artist?" They're like, "That's you're not going to make any money." Like,
which is what I got. Which is funny is like, my mentors, like Brent Anderson and Neil Adams, they were just telling me that you gotta love it. And I remember talking to Neil Adams saying, actually tell me, don't do comic books. He actually, I'm my greatest hero of all people. And when I met him, like in my mid-teens for the first time, and here's this giant, and he's telling me, no, don't do comic books. Don't do comic books. Comic books are, you'll never, this is what you need to do is commercial art. You learn traditional art, and I was really shocked to hear that. Every one of my giants, like favorites, were telling me don't do comic books, but I loved it so much. And they all told me where it's at is storyboards, work in movies, which is the reason why when I went to college, I pursued the film thing.
Oh, well, there we go. Perfect segue. I like that you set that up. Very nice for me. So we are here to talk about the Lumpia with a Vengeance coming out. Your guys' film that you worked on, that is coming out at the end of this month for everyone to know. We will
September 30th.
Yes, we will drop this date very many times. It's going to probably be obvious how Diego got brought on, but Lawrence, how did you get involved with this group of people?
Well, it's funny is that I became a film professor when after college, and after working in the film industry for a while, working both on studio and commercial, film, and I became a professor accidentally.
Well, wait. So did you? I just want to connect the dots. So did you go to the storyboarding thing, and then storyboarding led you to film, or how did you cross the
funny.
comics thing?
I went to do the storyboards and whatnot, but I got discovered by my mentor in film. Her name is Millie Arotro, or Mildred Arotro. She's an Oscar award-winning editor who's worked with Francis Ford Coppola, and she's worked with Gus Van Sant. She actually cut La La Land, Wolverine,
wow.
Planet of the Apes, the new Planet of the Apes with Matt Reeves. So she actually discovered me in my required classes, my required film classes, in my foundation classes, and she made the recommendation that I should do film, like change my major. You're really good and blah blah blah. And so my track changed, not through just her recommendation, but because, like I said, computers went around. My school, actually, the school that Diego went to, suddenly went through a change of the digital age. I mean, something radically happened in 95, 96. And that is that the whole digital age was introduced. The whole Silicon Valley thing was introduced. In my school, the Academy of Art was majorly affected. And they opened up the door to actually not just animation, but computer animation. And the film classes, I was actually the alpha of the film program. I've actually am one of the first students. I am the first generation of the film program when it started.
Nice.
At the academy.
Well
and so I was given a choice saying, we are no longer doing map paintings, which was something I thought I was going to do. So you either become a digital artist, a CGI artist, which is what they were introducing, or you become a film person. So I had to make a choice, and I decided to do film, and but learn the track of continuing to be a storyboard artist. And while I was in college, I started working professionally because I started interning, not just through the recommendation of my teacher, but through all my professors. They were recommending me to work on set. And that was the only way to actually get intern work, which I discovered, is you had to be a student. So if I graduated, I would lose my opportunity to work. So that's why I stayed in school a lot longer, and
stay in school, kids.
And I made a lot of connections. I worked on, like, from anywheres from James and the Giant Peach to like The Incredible. I worked on a lot of films while I was in school. And when I got out of school, that became my thing. And ultimately, again, I was given a choice of whether going to Hollywood or staying in the Bay Area. And I became a dad. I got married and became a dad. And we decided that we were going to raise, our family up here. And that's how I became a professor. It's like I became a professor up in the Bay Area. And I actually started the film program based upon my experience in actually teaching in the community college, real world, like, this is how film is done. And while I was teaching film, my students who were Filipino brought to my attention the original Lumpia film.
Oh, okay.
And like, what is this thing? And the film actually came to my college, where I taught at the community college level, because I was teaching both the community college and the university. And it actually came to a community college I taught at. And I saw Lumpia, and I couldn't believe it. Like, wow, I wish I could have been involved in this film.
For wait, real quick for context, just so people know, I don't know how to call it, the Lumpia group, are based out of San Francisco, or
Daly City,
right?
Daly
Okay,
City, California. So
so
the original film came to Fremont, California, where I was teaching, and I was able to see the film and meet the folks and whatnot. And then I saw it in the theater. I was like, wow, I really, I couldn't believe like this film. It was a, it was definitely a homemade film and whatnot. And it looked so much fun. Um, Ironically, my students started getting the opportunity to do professional work, and a few of them actually work with a Patricio um, along the way, working on music videos. And that's where I got connected, where I got recommended by my students that you should hire our mentor, our teacher.
so how
And
funny that it kind of goes full circle, how
yeah, it
your
was
teachers
such
helped
a
you and then your students helped you, though.
yeah, it was so trippy because based upon a meeting, I can't remember what the platform was, but online, it was like one of the first online meetings, we did it digitally, and they needed help. They said, hey, we're working on this project. It was AJ Calloway, um, who's the editor and producer of our Lumpia with a Vengeance.
Right,
He
him and Pat are like the 1-2 kind of, right?
Yeah, they were the two that actually created Lumpia, the
Okay.
first original film.
Okay.
And then at the time they were looking for someone to help them out. And I met AJ directly that way. And next thing you know, he asked me, hey, would you mind being our first AD? We've never had a first AD. I said, yeah. So
There's
we
indie film for you, huh?
yeah, so it just I wound up getting on set and using my formal training and my working with the studio. I actually worked with the indie world and approached it on a studio level. And I actually said, I'll help, but would you mind if I brought my students with me? So that way I could teach them directly as a crew. And we're not sure. I was like, no, don't worry about it. You don't have to pay them. It's just more like
Oh, there you go. Free labor, we're down.
It gives, it's I was looking at, what better way for my students to have intern work experience, and go directly into the industry and under safe conditions, because I'm going to be the first AD. I'm going to be there. And we hit it off, and then that became our working relationship. Is that whenever they were in the Bay Area, Pat and AJ, they would hit me up, and I would recommend the most strongest students, and I would be there constantly working with them. And this relationship just grew all the way up to the point where I was his first AD. And then the anniversary of Lumpia came up, the 10th anniversary, and he said, how do you feel about doing the sequel? I was like, this is what I've been waiting for. It's like, I've always wanted to work on the first film, just after seeing the first film, I was like, what an opportunity. And he said, well, then I became the producer on that capacity and brought in all the different folks of over the years that we've worked with, from my students who are now working as professionals. And it gave the opportunity to and actually, like you said, it came full circle of our worlds just came together in this film. And what a perfect place, the Bay Area, where we're both from, and using folks who've worked with us and collaborated with us over the years on music videos and whatnot, and discovering new talent like April Asmith and Katrina, who actually I've actually met April, our lead, while I was at teaching as a professor, and she actually auditioned for one of my student films for one of my students. And I just remember just saying, I would like to work with this person. I even told her, like, somewhere down the line, she actually came to the audition that Diego was actually helping out at that time. So Diego was like kind of interning for me and acting as my assistant, because being a single dad, he was, there with me a lot. And again, it was the opportunity, just like my son's with me, and it gives me a chance to actually show him what I do on a day-to-day basis. And then he actually was like, hey, I can help out. And he literally walked our leads through the door when they were discovered. He was there the day that they auditioned and were discovered for our film. So
well, Diego, let's wrap around this some more for you. So you were talking about your love of movies and your path for going on art as well. So is how did all this, I guess, excite you? The fact that you're having this love of film and wanting to do film, and then you get brought in on this project, and you're like, oh man, how old were you at the time?
So during the time of the casting, I was 15, and
so you're a teenager, and you're just like, oh man, I'm already jumping in on this. All right, let's go. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for me, this was part of a dream coming true. Because not only was I just a huge fan of like movies and stuff like that, I know my dad was a professor, and I saw whenever he would hold screenings for his students, I would see some other movies, and some of his students, I liked their movies and their concepts, and I wanted to do my own movies when I was a teenager. I loved even YouTube videos and stuff like that at the time, and then being brought into a real professional set, and especially during the casting call, is one of the most wildest things, because at the time you think, oh, it's like this person might not get it, or this whoever. You're not having any personal bias. You're just saying, oh, this is cool, I'm being a part of this process. And you bring in these people, you hear a little bit of their audition, and you're going, wow, that's awesome, or whoa. And towards that point, I really thought this was a very different part of the process, because you don't get to see the casting call, or the auditions for like Robert Pattinson's Batman or anything. and being a part of this for Lumpia with a Vengeance was amazing, because I brought in, I think, 4 or 5 of our major talents from the Bay. I like Katrina, April, Fresca, and I think Bora, who's one of the major comedic characters. Like all these people were brought in that day, and some of them I knew, like Bora, and I vaguely remember April when I was younger through my dad's screenings with his students. So it's trippy seeing things kind of come full circle this early on in my life, and then being brought into the actual production of where I started off as like my dad said, as his assistant, and then working my way into being like a PA, a production assistant, and then being a grip on set. It was it's nerve-wracking as a kid, because you're going like, man, I've never done this, but then at the same time I'm like, well, this is what like YouTubers do. This is where like a lot of people like my generation, like this is the kind of the now. This is a little bit of the norm where you see young filmmakers, and I'm going like, well, instead of a YouTube video, this is a movie. This is the coolest thing ever for me. So it really became something very special, and was trippy, because I started to feel kind of like a comic book character, because Kara was in high school, and I still had to go home and do homework, and then I was like, and then I'm kind of living like the Peter Parker, like Robin life, where like I go home, and then I go to the movies, like, or like I would leave school, and then I'm like, well, time to go to work.
You put on your belt of tools, the grip and stuff. You're like, all right, here's my costume.
Literally.
Yeah, no joke. That's what it felt like when I put on the gloves at certain points, like when you put on, if you have like, if there's all these bright lights, especially on a Saturday, where it's, you think, well, time to put on the sunglasses, that becomes your mask. Like it becomes like this awesome thing. And because Lumpia with a Vengeance was also shot on a high school, it was like the trippiest thing ever. Because like people would go, oh, is he an extra? It's like, oh no, he's got the belt, so he's one of those guys. So I felt like kind of this almost VIP, yet not. It's this very different way of being a part of the production. And even so, like not only like would I just be like doing setting up the lights and helping out with the grips, I would also like bring in the cast, where they'd say, oh, Diego, go find Katrina, because I know who Katrina is, I knew who April was, I knew who everybody on the call sheet was. So I would just go, I would book it, I would find where the cast members were, and I would communicate and relay things for like my dad or any of the other producers. And that end of things I thought was like really cool, because I just, like I said, I just really felt like a superhero. It was on a level of like unlike any other.
I'm imagining the Peter Parker side though, of like he's going to school the next day. He's tired. He's got bags under his eyes, and they're like, "Man, what were you doing last night?" Well, I can't talk about it.
Yeah, oftentimes that's what it was. Like people didn't understand.
They thought you had a
Especially
really
like
bad drinking habit or something, or you're out partying too long, or
like it was crazy to explain this to like my teachers. Like, oh no, I work in movies, and then even at this point in time, I also started working game testing, which was for a young person, and like all your peers in high school, like everybody's like loves
It's
games.
unbelievable, Derek. You just like, you have to imagine that here he was working side by side with professionals, and not just like get me coffee, like he was like right there with the producers, like, and there was just a sense that Diego was very aware of everybody, of who everybody was, and everybody knew who he was. Not as, they didn't know him as, oh, that's Diego, the producer's son. That's Diego, he works
here. Yeah.
yeah. So it's, and I never treated him like he had to do it, but I just let him know that the importance of like, we're going into an atmosphere that is very, very serious. Like, are you sure you want to be here? And something that I have to share though, it's just like the movie was also served as a somewhat of a healing moment for my son and myself, because just literally a month and a half before my father had passed away.
Oh, terrible.
And it was very hard on their family. Even the whole production wanted to know, do you want to continue? Like, is this something you want to do? Do we need to delay the production? And it came down to, is like, it became a thing where I needed to be there. And I think that's another, not I think, but I know that it's another reason why Diego was there, is that, we had just lost my dad, and working on the film together was a major bonding moment for the two of us.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so when the movie finally wrapped in 2018 in November, we started 2017 in June. Like I said, shortly after my dad, we had his memorial service. When the movie wrapped in November, it was such an emotional moment for the both of us. I just remember the two. There's actually a picture of us. Somebody caught it, that we had our own moment in the final scene, the final day, the final night, the final hour. And when we called it, that's a wrap, You know, there was a somewhat of a, I don't know if it was a sadness, but also relief, joy. It was such an emotional moment for the two of us, because at that moment I just felt like our dad, my dad, his Lolo was with us. It was also we wanted him to be on set. It would have been the one film where my dad would have seen me at work, because he's never seen me at work, but he would have seen his grandson working next to his father, on set. It would have been something, but we shared this moment. So that became the film for us, was a major healing journey. It was a time for him to learn, a time for me to produce, and get involved with something very special. So that's why Lumpia with a Vengeance for us was a journey on a personal level of something that both father and son, we have our loves merging together, of a film, a Filipino film, a comic book action type of film, that's rooted in comic book world, and then us actually working side by side to release this loss, but also embrace this chance to formulate a family among the crew and us. So it was definitely a journey, and for Diego and myself, it just we lived that film in a way where most people wouldn't know, before we had our prayer in the as we were going to set together, and we're leaving as we had the end of the day, and he had his moments, to be by himself, alone, with my partner, um in between sets and whatnot, but just to kind of like get lost in the production. um it served a lot, and it gave a lot to
No,
us.
that's great though.
Yeah.
I want to make sure, because we're gonna lose you soon, but I want to make sure to get on something that I want to get the people listening to this that don't possibly know anything about it. I want to get the impact, or how much this means to you guys. So you've been doing all the, I saw the movie last year at the Asian Pacific Film Festival.
Yeah.
And so I know you guys have been hitting the festivals now for, about a year now, like at least,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
what has it been like all this time? You did, you've done San Diego Comic Con, the special edition, you did the real Comic Con, you
Yeah.
did the WonderCon, all these, Emerald City, all this stuff. Talk about what it is like taking this Filipino centric Asian representation film, taking all these audiences, speaking about it, talking about it, putting it out there, and now you're getting this theatrical release for the general public. Just I know it's a lot to sum up, but talk about what this journey's been like for the last year or so, or year and a half.
Well, it's this film is a film that, like I said, like you said, it has so much behind it, meaning that it's a comic book inspired film. It's a crowd funded film. This film was put together through fans, through the community, through friendships, through families, representing us, as a diverse collective of Filipinos from different backgrounds and different families. And now, after a 7-8 year journey of trying to get the film together, it's finally getting its opportunity to be released in the theaters September 30th. Tickets are now on sale, but
Get them.
get them, but it's actually being put out by the community. It's being put out by us. We've actually are self-distributing it in a way that it's just beyond anything. It took us a year and a half to film. It went through an editorial of almost another year and a half, almost 2 years, and here it is, like I said, we started filming started 2017, and now here we are 5 years later, actually realized to be on the film. And we didn't think it was going to happen because, you know, we hit the festival. We were supposed to be released right when COVID hit. And our original theatrical release was like halted. So everything stopped. And maybe it was a blessing in disguise because it actually gave us a chance to do the film that we wanted to. You know, we actually worked on the film during that entire time, and we had other people who were kind of like latecomers saying, hey, I know, you know, is there anything we could do to help out the film? And they just happened to be special effects people and editorial folks who actually worked during COVID to actually do more effects, more production, more post, more tightening on everything that we wanted to do on the film. And so COVID halted us, but it actually gave us the opportunity to deliver the film that's now being in the theaters. It's a big thing for us to actually share an original comic book inspired action comedy film made by 90-something% of Filipino cast members and an entire crew from the Bay Area and Los Angeles coming together to actually show a diverse set of Filipino characters, a heroine and a hero of color, of diverse color, to actually come in and to deliver such a comedic and action film that has never been done. It's actually, and this is actually a sequel too. So that's why it's like so many levels. Like, this is a film, like, it's got comic book stuff, it's got action stuff, it's got family stuff, and it's, you know, it's been put together by the community. I mean, so many levels of, like, it's got professional folks, it's got new folks, and it's got the original cast coming back from the original Lumpia movie that I got inspired by. So it's just been in a phenomenal ride, a phenomenal chance to actually see this film, to finally hit the theater September 30th, all around, you know, all around different cities and different states coming up. I'm very, 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 very proud, and hope that people take this opportunity to catch this movie in the theater, not streaming, but actually sitting in a seat among the audience to actually see on the big screen Mark Munoz, who plays our hero, you know, mixed martial arts champion, and Katrina Demaran, who's from the Miss Philippines International touring, as well as April Adsis from Blind Spotting, the Hulu show. To have these folks just be in the film. I mean, we even got Joey Gila from Easter Sunday from Joe Coy's film in our film, who's also in Fabulous Filipino Brothers. So, you know, we have an actor who's been in all 3 major feature films this year in our film. So it's crazy. You know, we are the 3rd Filipino feature film being put out this year alone, and we're finishing the year, we as a whole, finishing the year with this Filipino feature film, our film, to close it out.
Long time coming.
Yeah, it's just such a pride, you know, such, you know, I have such pride in it and such, you know, excitement for it. And, you know, I'm looking forward for families, you know, and generations to actually catch on to this film that will be entertaining. As you've seen, it's got fun, it's got family, it's got funkiness in it, you know. It's just such a different take, you know, that you would ever see on the big screen.
Well, that's one thing I definitely want to make sure to mention, is that all of the times I've ever seen this film has always been in a large audience, because I've always seen it at the conventions or at the film festival. So I've never seen it sitting on my couch by myself, or, like, you know, sitting on my laptop in a airport or something. Like, I've always seen this with a big crowd, and I think that's definitely a big part of why it's so fun, because it's a comedy. I mean, it's action adventure comedy, you know, all that stuff, but it's like so many of those moments hit well when you got a crowd with you. You know,
Yep.
it wouldn't hit the same way if you were sitting on your sofa by yourself. I don't think it would still be
Absolutely. I mean,
good, but it wouldn't hit
yeah,
as well.
yeah. I just think there's a familiarity, and also the community can actually feel the community moment, you know, because knowing that, you know, oh, this is what the community put together, this is what the crowdfunding happened, you know, you can actually feel the crowdfunding like pride happen as a whole when you're sitting in the audience, and to realize left and right that, wow, this was made by us. You know, you're part of it. As when you buy that ticket, when you get that ticket and you sit in that seat, it's like, I am part of this crowdfunding film by seeing it. And like you said, it's one thing you could, out of convenience, see it at the safety of like your hand, the palm of your hand on a tablet, or you know, on the laptop. But the real experience is, as you can see, like, this film was made to be seen on the big screen. You know, it like there's a lot of big moments. There's over 600 plus effect scenes that is the equivalent of Transformers #4. You know, that's how many effect scenes that we have, that, and to not see that on the big screen is just, it's you miss out on something. You know, you miss out on something. Yeah.
I want to make sure though that we don't forget to mention a huge part of what you guys do, both of you. So people probably don't know, maybe they do, that's why they're here. While you guys have this film to promote that's coming out, you also have several issues of a comic book that you've put that are like a companion to this. I've read the trade paperback and stuff, and it's funny that there's all these like kind of like interjected bonus scenes
Yes.
you know, and they keep saying like, okay, you need to watch the film to see how this plays out. So like, if you watch the film and then read the comic, you get all these like, you know, more context or like more way to flesh out the characters. I know we're running out of time, but can you give a little bit of how that came about, or like why that came with the movie, or where it fit in with the movie?
Well, the original film always opened up as a comic book. So the film itself, the original film, opened up, and so we do the same thing with our film, showing that there's a comic book theme to it. But when the opportunity came around, when, like I said, COVID hit, and we didn't have a convention to go to, and we created online our own Lumpia Palooza convention, and just invited folks to do a meet the stars, meet the folks who created the movie. And the whole subject about that, you know, we would love to do a comic book, you know, and that just festered, and just getting the opportunity, as well as that there are stories behind the stories and chapters behind the chapters, you know, stuff that we couldn't do. And we took that opportunity with Patricio Janelsa, who, you know, is the writer director, and created the Deep Fried Universe, that we're calling it, and just expanded on that. And it just, you can see that we were able to do what's called the prequel, the issue where you got a chance to actually see the connection between the first film and this film. So we did a series of stories that happened between the two films. And then we were saying, you know, we did this prequel, so-called prequel, or prelude. So when we had the opportunity, we decided, actually, let's try showing them what happened between the scenes. So we had this interlude where we got the opportunity to actually show the stories that we couldn't film, or it would be too costly to film. Like, there's a whole chapter in there that I really wanted to see in the film, which is kind of like a Warriors inspired moment, from, you know, the old movie, The Warriors, having this big production that just couldn't simply happen. So you know, it doesn't cost much, you know, to do an action sequence in a comic book. Like, it costs nothing. It's just a bunch of drawings. So it gave us an opportunity to do a full production in the comic book itself. And then ultimately, when it came to like, well, how do we finish this off? It gave us even more time to actually say, well, this is what happens after the film. So you get a chance to actually see what happens to the characters and expanded adventures. And because of that, the reaction was so, again, we're responding to the audience, the crowds, and the festivals and the conventions, and we gave the opportunity to do tie-ins. Gemini, which is the villain of our film, she actually has her own book, and we expanded on that. And then we have what's called the legendary Lumpia Squad, an expansion to the ending of the film. So it just made it so appropriate to do it. I mean, it's a comic book like film, comic book inspired film made by comic book fans, and it would just be a crime for us not to do it. And I happen to be a comic book artist who's been around for a while in the forefront.
You've done it a little bit.
So I've been a ghost artist for a while, and this is the first time my name's actually appeared on the cover with my first name. And so that again is like, this is actually the cover of the issue, that one of the issues that I did, to actually have my name mentioned, to do a colored character, a diverse character of my heritage, to actually be there. The first thing to have my name is such a big deal, and it opened up the door for Diego to actually do the same thing, where he did his first cover as well, and do a Filipino character, directly on the cover. So it's a lot of pride for us, but this opportunity allowed us to actually gather other Filipino artists from the industry. Will Spertasio did the one that Diego's like, he's right here.
Love that cover. It's fantastic.
From the Will Spertasio of X-Men fame, and he was a big supporter. We had Bobby Rubio from Pixar, who actually did a cover. And when we had several other artists who come in, and there's, Gerald Pilare, who's been our movie artist, and he got the opportunity to actually do, an actually full comic book, and a full cover. So it's been an opportunity to expose these artists and work with art. Even our stunt coordinator, one of our stuntmen, he was an artist himself, and he got an opportunity to actually do his work. And we had an artist from the Philippines. So there's so many different artists that came around together to actually show their support, show their love, expand on this universe, and to see the different styles that we can actually do this movie on, because it is a comedy and action, a family entertainment. We were able to actually capture all these different styles of comic book artistry, and give back to the different folks who are nerds and fans, both of the film and of the comic book world. So it just fills me with so much pride and how this film has allowed so many different opportunities to hit around.
Well, I'm very glad to have been able to see it for the last year. I have so many of the books. I've been able to see a lot of the screenings and stuff and meet all you guys, and it's been really fantastic.
Is it still funny for you? Is it still funny for you?
The movie?
Yeah,
of course. Yeah. I'm looking forward to. I'm gonna go and and definitely check it out one more time. I definitely have to lend my support to you guys. I look forward to watching it, because I didn't see it this past time at San Diego, because I have seen it several times, but it's like I've had a good, I don't know, probably 6 months since the last time I've seen it, so I'm ready for another viewing.
Another serving of Lumpia.
Plus, I am looking forward to seeing on big screen, good sound system, and everything, and all that like that. I am looking forward to that a lot too. We got to let you go. We're gonna hold on to your son for a little bit. Sorry, we're gonna make sure he's gonna give us all the embarrassing stories about you that he can. But is there any socials you want to drop, or anything for any socials for the film you want to drop to let people get more information?
Yes, go to lumpiamovie.com. Look on there with all the screenings. It'll show the different cities that are popping up, because we're actually adding on more cities as our theaters are filling up. Please buy tickets. You could actually get tickets ahead of time. You could go to Regal Cinema. You could actually go to Fandango.com, look for Lumpia with a Vengeance, and check it out. But LumpiaMovie.com will give you all our updates, and the link, it'll give you the link to the ticket where you can buy tickets ahead of time. You can actually buy tickets right now. Buy tickets now. We're hoping to sell out opening weekends on the cities around San Francisco, Daly City, Los Angeles, Long Beach, and San Diego. You know,
Is it a weekend, or is it just one day, or how long?
Oh, it's opening up, but we're hoping to opening weekend for any film is a major thing,
right?
And it opens actually more theaters. So the better we fill up those seats over before the opening weekend. Don't wait to the very last minute to get tickets. Get them now, because they will open up more theaters as people see that that they're opening up more, and there's a need for more. So please buy tickets for folks that are around your area. As much as you can, and recommend the film. But LumpiaMovie.com, Regal Theaters, Fandango, you can actually check it out and get your tickets ahead of time.
I mean, let's be honest, just buy it for your friends. If they don't show up so well, they just contribute anyways.
Yeah. You
know what? If they don't come see it, that's fine. You know what? They supported it. We're like, you know what? I bought this, admission pass for your birthday. Well, I can't go. Oh, that's fine. It's okay.
Yeah. I mean, it really makes a difference. It really, really makes a difference. And, fill out those seats. September 30th through October 2nd is a major time. But please continue to buy tickets, because we're opening up in different cities the following in October, as well as the next few weekends. So it is Filipino-American History Month. So this is
October.
Yep.
Excellent,
October.
Excellent.
And also to buy tickets.
And also, is there any place to go for updates for the comics?
Again, LumpiaMovie.com.
Same thing. Okay.
Same thing. It's got merchandise. It's got our film. It's got our film dates. It's got our updates, and the direct link to actually where you can buy tickets. So
excellent.
LumpiaMovie.com is where you want to go. Check it out, and get those hard to find covers, because our covers actually have become collector's items now. They are limited edition. And they serve as great companions. There's a lot of Easter eggs. You can actually take the trade paperback and watch the film and go, oh my God, this scene happens in between this scene. There's so many different little stories about the characters to just get familiar. And I just really think you'll enjoy it a lot. I had a great time. I can tell you all these different things about it. And also,
I'm here to say, you don't have to be Filipino to enjoy the movie.
Yes, but be prepared to be hungry. Yes. Because a lot of folks have said that right after the film, it's our sound design of the crunching of the lumpia that you hear. We're just rev up your appetite. That's for sure. So please, LumpiaMovie.com. Opening in theaters September 30th, but tickets are on sale now. Come see us. We're actually going to have folks at the theater on opening night, from San Diego to Los Angeles to Daly City. I'll be there in Daly City. Diego will be at Daly City. Please come and check us out. And you'll never know if someone might make an appearance at the theater. So just check out our merchandise. Check out our showings on LumpiaMovie.com. So
all right, Lawrence. Well, I know you got to run. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate it. I hope to see you soon at some event or convention again soon.
Absolutely.
Take care, buddy.
Take care, man. Love that lumpia, folks.
Hey, buddy, how you doing?
I'm good.
And now we do the smooth segue. So I was I'm glad he didn't go into it too much. I actually wanted to leave this up for you. So he kind of touched on it a little bit. You got brought into, just like you got brought into the movie, you got brought into the comics as well.
Yeah.
You want to talk more about that?
Absolutely. see, the thing about the comics that were very different is obviously my dad talked about like the little Lumpia type of con that they had on their own, and I was not able to like create any art during these times, but I was watching it because I literally live with my dad, so I witnessed all these things being built, and I've just been it's poor scheduling and poor timing on my end because I'm still a college student. So I have finals and other things during each of these semesters. And finally, after I took like color theory, I was able to take and get the chance to do some covers and stuff like that. And I remember going to Pat's house, and Pat's like an uncle to me. I've known him for years, ever since I was a kid. He's like, "Hey man, when are you gonna do a cover?" And I was like, "Honestly, I've been wanting to do one for a long time. I just wanted your blessing because I didn't want to generate art and be like, oh, here's my cover. It's like this is like
That's why people drop that CD for a manager or something or whatever. It's like, here's my cover that you might want to use.
yeah, I don't want to be like a hustler and be like, here's my cover. It's a pretty hot mixtape type of deal. I'm not trying to do that. It's like I rather like I genuinely wanted to do one since issue one, but just poor scheduling and I definitely wanted to do it. So and when I did my first cover, which is Lumpia with a Vengeance #3, so this is after the film, and I thought, okay, anything goes because this is after the movie, and I thought like anticipation for the third film. What could we do that's cool? And the Bay Area is a very pivotal part of our production. Us as people, as filmmakers and artists, a lot of us are from the Bay, and I go to school in San Francisco. And my first cover is a clear tribute because it's takes place on the Bay Bridge, and you see San Francisco right in the background. And it was just made as a love letter also to the cast and crew, especially the cast. I have April and Katrina, who are the two members who I saw like get casted that day. So there I try to put as much as I could towards that. And shortly after I finished this one, I'm going like, oh man, like I hope to do more. And then like we get greenlit to do Gemini, and Pat didn't ask me for this one, but I just did it anyways. This was one of our way. Okay, now I have to do this, and I it takes place also in San Francisco. I took some photos in like the financial district, and I thought be a kick-ass scene to like be here. And if there's like a SWAT like scene and everything, so that's why it's in the rain. You have all the police lights are going on. And I thought this would be like amazing to see for #3 or for her own sequence to happen. And during that time, I had we were my father and the team for in the interior work, they were having a very tight deadline, and they needed character design for a brand new villain or villainess that is in between #3 and Gemini #1. And I co-designed a character, Gemini with a G. She's like the white version, and she's the twin sister of Katrina's character.
Dun dun dun.
And I took it to absolute like, okay, they didn't ask me once again to do this, but I took it to heart. Like I have to do this. Like I like everybody's busy right now. Everybody has their own deadlines, and I I have a few months or a month until my semester. Like let's just do it. And my dad was also like trying to do it. That he's doing the interior work all at the same time, and I showed him my design, and he really liked it. And so he and I, it's this first time where we actually collaborated together on a character and even just a piece where it's a fusion of kind of this old school new like type of look. And from the get-go, I kind of made it this retro type of design because I was inspired by an old show called Battle of the Planets.
Oh man.
Yeah, it's older, and I like the designs, and I think it'll also just be cool to see a person like Katrina wear that. And I was like, this would be amazing. And so I was a part of that process, and then I also was in the middle of doing where I got brought in to do like the layouts for issues, I believe issue number 1 of Gemini. So I did the later half of it, and I did a complex like sequence and stuff like that. And my dad did the finished pencils, and he did the inks. So, and then by the time of that, I had a period of a break, and Pat's like going, okay, we're gonna do Lumpia Squad, and that's where I was like, okay, man, I'm gonna see what else I can do in San Francisco.
You're like, I guess I'll do more for you. I guess Uncle Pat, you know.
Well, it's like for me, every time I do artwork, it's never like it's never without any hesitation. It's always I want to do something that's gonna be big. Like I mentioned this earlier, like my biggest influence is like Joe Kubert, Neil Adams is also another one, Bill Sienkiewicz. There's a lot of these classical artists, and Frank Frazetta, Alex Nino, Tony DeZunga. Like, I can go on, but these are guys that are major influences to me that I genuinely took it to heart, and I realized, like, I want to. What I love about these guys' work, I want it to be on our property, on our Filipino book. I want to have that type of degree of representation, because when I was going to the cons, I actually did meet one of the fellow last members of what's called the tribe of the artists that are from the Philippines who got introduced in the mainstream in the 70s. And his name is Alex Nino. And when I met him, I showed him some of my work that I was doing at the time for my classes and stuff like that. And I didn't have any like Filipino characters or anything to show. I didn't have anything at that point because it was right at special edition. And I wasn't published yet, but I had my work in the progress at the studio. And he gave me wonderful advice. And I asked him, like, he liked my ink work that I was showing him, and he told me, like, you could just, if you just do more, just push like a little bit towards different things. And I said, how would you color this? And he said, oh, honestly, I would use gouache. And because of him, all my covers are painted with using gouache, yeah, exclusively. And he's been like the biggest hero for me. He's been the major advocate, him and his family. And recently, when we went out to San Diego Comic-Con, I got to show the family all my covers, and for them, they are Filipino, and to have that degree of representation to show us, like, hey, look at what we're doing, look at our community. It's a game-changing thing, because for many years in comic books, just to even have a Filipino title main character, like, we haven't had one. And to do it on our own, and also just to cross-pollinate, to have these different artists from not just the Philippines, not just here in California, from East Coast and all over, coming together to band with on this project, it felt very special to share with the older generation. Because in all honesty, if it weren't for them, artists like myself and my dad, like, we wouldn't be given this opportunity of what we're doing now. And I've definitely felt like indebted to show that to them.
Being I don't know how to say this to where it doesn't sound silly, being of a younger generation compared to your dad. What was it like? I mean, you kind of touched on it already, but what was it like reading comic books as
Um,
you were growing up? And I mean, was it one of those things that like, was there a realization they're like, how come there's not Asians? Or were you just like, you didn't even think about it? Or when did you, kind of realize that like that there wasn't much of an Asian representation in comics? I mean, you guys had Shang-Chi, which, people have talked
yeah,
to death about, which wasn't the greatest representation, but
so here's the thing about me, because I'm mixed. So my mom's white, and I'm my father, as you can see, he's brown. So at the time, I never really I've been reading comic books ever since I was a little kid. Like especially from around 7 years old onward, it's what helped me read, actually, which is why I have such a profound love for comic books. Um, I particularly liked Spider-Man growing up, and I was reading the Ultimate comic books. And, you know, spoilers, but Peter Parker dies. And they brought in Miles Morales, and Miles is biracial. And for me, growing up, like this was trippy because I was going to a new school. I was transferring in, and he's mixed, I'm mixed, and I felt some degree of representation. But as I got older, and I didn't really think about it, that there weren't characters that are Asian. Like I knew there's Shang-Chi, but when I was younger, I also thought like Iron Fist was Asian. I thought Snake Eyes was Asian, and like my dad's like, no. I was like when I found out that Snake Eyes, like what he actually looks like, that he's a blonde guy who has like a really messed up face. I was like, whoa, like this was something that I didn't really think about, because I grew up with shows like Avatar, and meeting like Dante Bosco, and shows like those were cool, but it weren't in the book format. And I didn't have that degree of realization like my dad right away, but it was something that I definitely felt kind of weird about, because Spider-Man was probably the only character where I felt I that guy is like me because he's mixed. But one of my other most favorite characters, which is Robin, I thought for years that Robin could be Asian or mixed in any shape or form of way, especially when I saw like the classic like Dick Grayson Robin, because if I thought he just, to be honest, he looked like me. He has this very similar jawline and hairstyle from when I was a little kid, and then I grew up with reading Dick Grayson as Batman and Damian Wayne, the son of Bruce Wayne, as Robin, and I thought, Damian kind of looks like me, like he could be Asian. But then they're very vague and kind of ambiguous about these things, and ultimately to kind of find out, oh no, these characters they're white, and I have nothing against that. It's just I didn't realize up until like my teen years that, and there aren't a lot of Asian characters in comic books. So while I was working on Lumpia, especially seeing the casting call and seeing like all the crew members and everything, I didn't realize that literally there isn't really a Filipino character in comic books.
Yeah.
And then I was like, there's Shang-Chi, and like my dad was like, Shang-Chi's badass, and I was like, cool. Like I didn't grow up with reading him, so for myself, there wasn't really too many Asian characters, but there's cool stuff like Avatar, that's for sure. So it was more like within anime and manga is where I felt more representation. There's stereotypical tropes, like even within Bleach and stuff like that, where characters are mixed within two different bloodlines, or they have a demon half, or whatever. Like for me, I'm like, oh, that's me, because they
You're
have
a demon
half. Well, they're half of something. Like
Right.
they're mixed. So I was like, I felt kind of represented more within like manga and stuff like that. But when I was younger, I also didn't really know the difference between the two. I just knew the books were different, one's facing backwards and they're different pages. And I grew up watching cartoons, and especially off of Cartoon Network, I've watched Naruto and stuff like that. So I didn't know that Naruto was different, or Pokemon. I didn't know that they came from Japan, and I those were kind of my representations compared to like my father's upbringing and anybody who's grew up in the 90s. It's very different from what I have or had. And so it's a very, I'm almost like this in between, kind of in this sweet spot of where we're getting representation but we're not fully there, in a sense of representation for Filipinos. I genuinely didn't see anything for myself for years, and I didn't think about it even in like when it came more towards like historical things within books and stuff like that, which is why I had a very hard time reading books when I was younger. I didn't relate to things like Catcher in the Rye or Hatchet, like these classical books that you have to read as a kid. And I was like, I don't relate to this guy. Like he doesn't live like where I live, or even he's, you know, he's not like me. And if in a sense, I think he's more like my brother. I have a half brother. He's fully white. He and I don't look the same. And I honestly thought like, oh, a lot of these characters are more, this is my brother and this is me. So that's what it was like more growing up. And characters that I genuinely felt more representation and deep found love was characters like Miles Morales. And when it came to doing Lumpia, especially for the books, I wanted deep down in my heart, I wanted to basically go, I want to make that love that I have in my heart for someone who reads Lumpia. Anybody who sees Miles Morales, a lot of kids go, that's a cool costume. I wanted to do that with Gemini. I wanted to go, especially for females and for women. I wanted to create a costume that isn't stereotypically like sexualized, or I want it to look like a superhero in a comic book look, but I don't want to be the stereotype where it's, you know,
Cleavage.
a lot of characters. Yeah, cleavage or basically they're wearing like a thong or whatever it may be. I wanted it to be a love letter to design, like for the old school and the new, and also a representation for our culture and for the actress, so that way she could be comfortable wearing that, and also it to have something that just, in all honesty, it looks cool for even she could wear it and a guy could wear it.
Yeah.
And it would be a kick-ass costume to wear.
Before I let you go though, I want to ask you about, so you know, your dad's already, you know, for done so much, you know, and you know he's still going, but you're currently in school.
Yeah.
So you know, it's kind of a, I'm sure a weird way to put it, but like what does your future desires, you know, like, you know, you have this love of film still, you're already an artist, you've worked on you know, a movie set. It's like where do you see yourself going, or what are your goals?
So, you know, it's fun because this is what I have to like answer through a lot in class. And in all honesty, I want to be a storyboard artist for animation, and specifically animation, because I want to be like one of the storyboard artists who did like Under the Red Hood. His name is I think it's I can't remember his name right now. But he's my absolute oh, okay, now I remember. It's Olivia J. So Olivia J is my absolute hero. I loved seeing his work as a kid, and I want to do that. And I also still want to do comic books. I want to explore more. I want to be, oh, if I could ever reach the lights of becoming like Frank Frazetta or Bill Sienkiewicz or even like Alex Nino, like these are artists that are like my heroes. You know, my goal is I really want to pursue animation and comic books. I never want to separate them, you know, with, to be honest, within the academic world of what I've experienced within my 3 years of college so far. Earlier on, within the first year and a half, there was a lot of pushback going, you know, it like it's either one or the other, man. You have to choose, but there are
You're like,
industry.
no.
Yeah, and there's a lot even defiance of where even I worked traditionally for the first 2 years of college. I didn't have a computer, so I was just learning from my phone on Zoom, and I shot my animations like with my phone, doing complete paper flipping it through, and you know, I firmly believe there's no reason to just be one or the other. You can be both. There are industry professionals like Alex Toth, uh, and Darwin Cook. These are two people, and Norm Brayfogle. These are guys that who worked in comic books and animation and who have a phenomenal skill set. And one of them is unlike any other that artists today study, and I want to do that. I want to follow their career path and not just abandon my love for books, because it's not trivial for comic books. This is a medium where it taught a 7-year-old kid to 12 years old how to read, and for right now, with kids who are discovering even how to read, discovering comic books, that some people, their first Spider-Man is Miles Morales, and they relate to him, that it helps them. I want to do that, and I also want to do it within animation. Animation is a form where kids and even adults can watch, and it's a platform, especially nowadays with YouTube and Instagram, that you can do both and explore many things, and that's what I want to do with my career.
Excellent.
So,
Well, I know you're going to do it. Uh, uh, I want to touch on, just because I know this from seeing you at San Diego
yeah.
recently. Real quick, because you're talking about Bill Sienkiewicz, you got to meet him.
Yes.
And how did
Yeah.
you want to share that little moment of getting to meet one of your heroes?
Yeah. Meeting Bill has been, in all honesty, the most eye-opening thing, because I've met Bill for the very first time when I was like 9 years old, and I watched him do a drawing for my dad, because my dad's known Bill, and Bill's friends with my dad's mentor Brent. So there's a lot of crossover, and you know, I saw this drawing that Bill did, and it was magical. You know, and then a few years later, I got a free sketch from Bill. He did it within, like, I'm honestly want to say less than a minute. It felt like 30 seconds.
Jeez.
And it was the cleanest drawing I ever saw. And from that moment there, in all honesty, is what made me go, I want to be like that guy. I want to do comic books. His work looks like, when you're early on as a kid, you kind of think, especially when you see his Joker, you're like, that's scary, man. But then I go, that's cool. But like, when you hit your teens, you go, that's cool. That's amazing. You see his work in Moon Knight, all these different things, and I have such high appreciation towards his craft, and how he even talks about the work, and what he does, and seeing his techniques. And when I met Bill at San Diego Comic-Con 2022, I showed him the Gemini cover, and I told him, hi Bill, I had my drawing board, and this is a drawing board that has in context, this has been passed down to me from my dad. Murphy Anderson at one point drew on this, and ever since then, from like 15 to 16, I've had Kevin Eastman, Chris Morenin, Howard Chaykin, my professors sign it. Like, this has even had, you know, this has been in a lot of people's hands where they do a sketch on the back, or they write a message. So I went up to Bill, showing him the board in my cover, and I said, Bill, I have to say, I've met you many times when I was a kid. You're my absolute hero, and I would love to show you, like, this is my work. I recently got published. That day, I came from a panel where him and Frank Miller were actually talking about diversity in comic books. They were talking literally about indie publishers and how they want to see more of that, and they love seeing young artists work. And for me, this was like, holy cow, I'm what you guys are like talking about. And it almost like came full circle within that moment. And he congratulated me. We had a little bit of a conversation, but his message that he wrote on the back and signed it says, "Keep kicking ass." And it's just, it, for me, it's a moment that I'll forever treasure. Like, I didn't get to have that moment with like Neil Adams, but for me, Bill is my Neil Adams. He's the person who I've encountered many times throughout my life. He's always a really kind man, and it's something that I'll forever treasure.
Excellent. Well, thank you for sharing that story with me.
Thank
or
you.
us. All right. Well, I'm going to let you go, but go ahead and drop your socials for everyone real quick.
Yeah. You can check me out at Diego You can also check me out on Twitch and YouTube at Diego Illustrates. So I like to keep these clean and simple. I'm on a little bit of a hiatus for Twitch and YouTube just because we're doing Lumpia. So September 30th.
You guys
check
are
it
a
out.
little busy.
Yeah, just a little busy. So, but yeah,
do you have any book? I don't know if you're allowed to even say. Do you guys have any more books coming out, or is there any of your art coming out from the Lumpia universe? Or,
you know, I'm working on some stuff, but I think I'll say that.
Okay.
So I've been working on some stuff behind the scenes. I'm trying to figure out if we have any like upcoming cons that we're attending, but I'm always like willing to do sketches and stuff like that for people. So I'm open to anything. And on my own end, I am working on like my own comic books, so I am busy.
Oh, excellent. Well, no, that's why they should follow you then, to get more updates like that. Then excellent. All right, man. Well, thank you so much for joining us. It was great to have you and your dad on together. I've had the pleasure of meeting you both in person, and there's times where I'll have conversations with you both, and I'll literally get done talking to you guys. I'm like, damn, I wish I was recording that.
You know what, Derek? It's one of those things that I genuinely appreciate meeting you, because it's eye-opening to meet someone who has enjoyment for a project that is not just designed for Filipinos. In my half of I try to show this to like my brother and my mom, and they haven't actually had a chance to see it yet. So seeing someone like yourself and many other people that aren't just Filipino love it as just as much as I do, it's eye-opening, and it makes me hope and see a bright future for what's next to come for the culture, and for anybody who's mixed or anything like that. It allows you to see like the impact of where we can go from here, and to want to deliver more.
Well, I hope in a couple weeks that you guys get to properly share it with everyone, and I hope it does take off. And if people do miss out, then that's on their bad, and they don't know what they're missing out on some great fun. But all right, man. Well, thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you soon, and I wish you best of luck with everything. I mean, I'll be around to see it, but I still, got to put it out there that I wish you so much luck with the. You have great talent and you're a great guy, and I wish you so much to see everything prosper. And I'm going to look forward to seeing it.
Oh, thank you so much.
All right, buddy. Take care.
Take care.